What if I told you the world's oldest temple was built 6,000 years before Stonehenge? By people who weren't even supposed to know how to farm yet. Welcome to Ancient Echoes. Today, we travel to a windswept hill in southeastern Turkey. To a place that rewrites the story of civilization itself. Göbekli Tepe, the temple that shouldn't exist. In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt climbed a dusty hill that local farmers had been plowing for generations. They called it simply Pottery Hill, because broken stones and ancient shards kept appearing in their fields. But when Schmidt looked closer, he realized these weren't just random rocks. They were the tops of enormous, carefully carved pillars, buried for thousands of years. What he uncovered would shake archaeology to its core. Beneath that ordinary hill lay circular stone enclosures, each made of T-shaped pillars weighing up to 15 tons. When the first dates came back from the lab, the numbers seemed impossible. Around 9600 BCE, Göbekli Tepe was nearly twice as old as Stonehenge, and more than 6,000 years older than the pyramids of Egypt. According to the textbooks, this should not be possible. At that time, humans in this region were supposed to be simple hunter-gatherers. Small bands of nomads following herds and seasons. With no permanent villages, no cities, and certainly no monumental stone temples. Yet someone, somehow, had planned, carved, transported, and raised these massive pillars. With a level of organization we normally associate with much later civilizations. Look closely at the stones, and the mystery deepens. Each pillar is alive with images, foxes leaping across the surface, snakes coiled like living lines of stone, vultures with wings spread wide. There are abstract symbols too, strange H-shapes, circles, and patterns that some researchers believe might represent constellations in the night sky. It's as if the builders of Göbekli Tepe were trying to carve an entire invisible world of spirits, stars, and stories into unbreakable stone. If this is what primitive hunter-gatherers could build at the very dawn of the Holocene, then maybe our idea of primitive is completely wrong. As excavations at Göbekli Tepe continued, the true scale of the site slowly came into focus. What looked like a single stone circle turned out to be just one of many. Beneath the surface, archaeologists found layer upon layer of carefully arranged enclosures. Rings of pillars sunk into the bedrock, some as wide as a modern house. Each enclosure is built around two towering T-shaped monoliths standing at the center, like silent guardians. These central pillars can reach up to 5.5 meters tall and weigh as much as 15 tons. Around them, smaller pillars form a circle, connected by low stone walls. None of this is random. Every pillar is deliberately placed, facing inward, as if the entire structure was designed to focus attention on the two giants in the middle. To create something like this, you need more than just raw strength. You need planning, you need knowledge of stone, of leverage, of how to coordinate dozens, maybe hundreds, of people at the same time. These pillars had to be carved from nearby limestone quarries, shaped using stone tools, dragged across uneven ground, and then lifted upright with astonishing precision. Remember, according to traditional timelines, there were no cities here. No writing, no wheels, no metal tools. The people of Göbekli Tepe were supposed to be nomadic hunter-gatherers, living in small, scattered groups. Yet the very existence of these structures suggests something else: large-scale cooperation, shared beliefs, and a level of social organization far beyond what we usually imagine for this period. Some researchers have proposed a radical idea. Maybe it wasn't farming that first brought people together into complex societies. Maybe it was places like Göbekli Tepe. Instead of, we invented temples after we had villages, the story could be the opposite. We built sacred places first, and villages grew around them. If that's true, Then Göbekli Tepe is not just an ancient temple. It might be the blueprint for civilization itself, carved in stone. Thousands of years before we thought it should be possible. But perhaps the most captivating mystery of Göbekli Tepe lies not in how it was built, but in what was carved into it. Walk between these ancient pillars, and you'll find yourself surrounded by an entire menagerie of prehistoric life. There are foxes frozen mid-leap across stone surfaces, their muscles tensed as if about to pounce on an invisible prey. Snakes coil like living spirals along the pillar's edges, their carved scales so detailed you can almost trace each individual line. Eagles and vultures spread their wings in eternal flight, forever guarding the sacred space. Scorpions, wild boars, and even hedgehogs, all captured in stone with an artist's eye for anatomy and movement. These aren't random decorations, they're a gallery of the local wildlife, carefully chosen and skillfully rendered by people who clearly understood the creatures they lived alongside. Some animals appear multiple times across different pillars, suggesting they held special significance. The fox, for instance, appears at least 6 different times throughout the site, more than any other creature. Then there are the abstract symbols that interweave with the animal carvings. Strange H-shaped marks carved deep into the stone. Flowing S-curves that seem to represent water or serpents. Circles that could represent the sun or moon. And dozens of other geometric patterns whose meaning remains a complete mystery. What were these prehistoric people trying to communicate? Some researchers believe the carvings form a complex calendar system, tracking seasons and celestial movements. Others propose they represent a prehistoric constellation map, a stone representation of the night sky that helped guide agricultural cycles or ritual ceremonies. Perhaps most intriguingly, some carvings appear to be incomplete, as if the artists were interrupted mid-work, leaving their final messages forever unfinished. Or maybe, just maybe, they intended these symbols to evolve over time, added to by successive generations of visitors and worshippers. What we do know is this: for the first time in human history, we have evidence that complex symbolic thinking, artistic expression, and possibly even written language predates civilization by thousands of years. But what if Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a temple? What if these ancient people were building something far more ambitious? A prehistoric observatory that tracked the movements of the heavens with extraordinary precision? Look up at these T-shaped pillars, and you might notice something remarkable. Many of them are oriented not just toward cardinal directions, but toward specific astronomical events. Archaeologists have discovered that several pillars appear to align with the summer and winter solstices, the equinoxes, and even the positions of specific stars like Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky. Here's where it gets truly mind-blowing. These alignments seem to have been calculated for dates around 8.400 years ago, when Göbekli Tepe was actually built. That means these prehistoric builders weren't just arranging stones randomly. They were creating a sophisticated astronomical calculator that could predict seasons, eclipses, and the movement of constellations thousands of years into the future. Some researchers believe the circular enclosures represent different astronomical cycles. The smallest circles might track the 19-year Metonic cycle used to predict eclipses. The larger ones could map the movement of the pole star, which shifts over thousands of years due to Earth's wobble. One pillar even appears to align perfectly with Vega, the star that served as Earth's pole star around 10.000 years ago. Perhaps most intriguingly, the animal carvings might represent more than just art. The fox, which appears repeatedly throughout the site, is associated in many ancient cultures with the star constellation Canis Minor. The eagle could represent the constellation Aquila. These Star animals, carved in stone, might be a prehistoric star chart, frozen in rock for all eternity. But here's the kicker. These alignments would have been incredibly difficult to calculate without modern instruments. The builders would have needed centuries of careful astronomical observation, precise mathematical calculations, and a deep understanding of celestial mechanics that we previously attributed only to much later civilizations. So why build an observatory? In a world before writing, before agriculture, before what we call civilization, an astronomical site would have been invaluable. It could predict the flooding of the Euphrates River, marking the best times for migration. It could forecast seasonal changes, helping hunter-gatherers know when to follow herds or when to settle. It could even serve as a massive calendar, coordinating ceremonies and rituals across vast distances. This challenges everything we thought we knew about the development of human knowledge. If Göbekli Tepe was indeed a prehistoric observatory, then sophisticated astronomical thinking, mathematics, geometry, and celestial observation existed 6.000 years before Stonehenge, 8.000 years before the Egyptian pyramids, and 10.000 years before we thought such knowledge was possible. Around 8.200 years ago, something extraordinary happened at Göbekli Tepe. The site was deliberately buried, not destroyed, not abandoned, but carefully, methodically covered with earth and stone, as if the ancient builders were preserving it for a future they would never see. Archaeologists discovered that the pillars weren't knocked down or smashed. Instead, they were gently laid to rest, surrounded by carefully placed stones and soil. It's as if the community performed a ritual funeral for their sacred site, honoring it one final time before sealing it away. But why? Why would a civilization invest centuries in building this monumental temple, only to bury it and walk away? Some researchers propose a spiritual explanation. Perhaps the site had served its purpose, a generational mission completed. The builders might have believed that burying the temple would preserve its spiritual power, locking sacred knowledge within the earth itself. In many ancient cultures, burial was seen as a form of resurrection, a transformation rather than an ending. Others suggest a more practical reason: climate change. Around 8.200 years ago, the world experienced a sudden cooling event known as the 8.2 kiloyear event. Temperatures dropped dramatically, rainfall patterns shifted, and the fertile lands around Mesopotamia became increasingly harsh. Perhaps the community that maintained Göbekli Tepe was forced to migrate, abandoning their sacred site to follow the herds and seek more hospitable lands. Or perhaps, and this is where it gets truly fascinating, they buried it intentionally to protect it, to hide it from rival groups, from invaders, or from those who might desecrate what they held sacred. A time capsule buried in stone, waiting for the right moment to be rediscovered. For 9.650 years, Göbekli Tepe remained hidden beneath the earth. It wasn't until 1994 that a Turkish shepherd noticed unusual stones protruding from a hillside. That chance discovery led to excavations that would fundamentally reshape our understanding of human civilization. Because here's what Göbekli Tepe reveals: everything we thought we knew about the development of human society was wrong. We believed that civilization required agriculture, that you needed farming, permanent settlements, and organized labor before you could build monumental structures. But Göbekli Tepe was built by hunter-gatherers, people who didn't farm, who didn't have permanent cities, who lived in small mobile groups. We believed that religion and monumental architecture came after civilization. But Göbekli Tepe proves that spiritual belief, artistic expression, and architectural ambition existed long before farming, long before cities, long before what we call civilization began. We believed that complex astronomical knowledge was the product of later, more advanced societies, but the alignments at Göbekli Tepe suggest that mathematics, geometry, and celestial observation were understood by people we've always dismissed as primitive. Göbekli Tepe doesn't just rewrite history, it rewrites our understanding of human potential. It tells us that our ancestors were far more sophisticated, far more ambitious, and far more capable than we ever imagined. They were artists, astronomers, architects, and spiritual visionaries who created monuments that would outlast empires. And perhaps most importantly, Göbekli Tepe reminds us that the greatest mysteries of human history aren't always hidden in distant jungles or lost underwater cities. Sometimes, they're buried right beneath our feet, waiting for us to dig deeper, question our assumptions, and recognize the genius of those who came before us. The question isn't whether Göbekli Tepe was built by an advanced ancient civilization. The question is, what else have we missed? What other monuments lie buried, waiting to rewrite everything we think we know? Ancient Echoes isn't just about revealing the past. It's about understanding who we really are. Because every monument we uncover, every mystery we explore, every impossible artifact we bring back into the light, changes not only history, but our entire idea of what humans are capable of. Göbekli Tepe was buried for nearly 10,000 years. But its message survived. And now, you've seen it. Proof that the greatest mysteries aren't always hidden in distant jungles or lost underwater cities. Sometimes, they're buried right beneath our feet, waiting for us to dig deeper and question everything we think we know. If mysteries like this fascinate you, if you want to keep exploring impossible temples, forbidden technologies, and civilizations that shouldn't exist, then hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us here on Ancient Echoes. Because this is only the beginning. What other monuments are still hidden? What other secrets is time keeping from us? And most importantly, what other truths about our past are being kept out of the history books? The next impossible mystery is coming soon. Are you ready to discover what they don't want you to know?